What is up, everybody? I am George Mossey. This is the George Mossey Show. Please say hello to my host, DeeDee. So, Darcey and Stacey, season 4, episode 11 and 12 is aired now. This was a pretty intense, emotional roller coaster type episode. There's a lot that happened, and we have to talk about all of it. So, let's start with the party bus. So, they get in the party bus, and Darcey hops on the stripper pole, and we kind of see a side of Florian that we weren't used to. Like, he was kind of controlling, and he was telling Stacey what she could and couldn't do. And in this episode, I think Stacey finally realized that she didn't want to be in a relationship with someone who was going to control her and tell her how she could live her life. Now, I know a lot of husbands, are going to feel like I don't necessarily want my wife on a stripper pole. So when Darcey told her to get on and Florian's like, well, there's no way. I'm not 100% off board with Florian on that. Like, if I was married, I wouldn't want my wife to be on a stripper pole, especially in front of other people. But again, is that fair, or is that being selfish? Because men are very territorial, and men seem to think that they can control things and control people and control situations. So how do you feel about Florian's controlling nature? Because he said that it has to do with his culture. Is that an excuse?
I am on Darcey and Stacey's side with that because it's her bachelorette party and it's with people that they know. So it's having fun. I could see if it was somewhere else where, there's like people there that they didn't know, but everybody that was on that bus is, close friends. So I don't see any reason why Florian couldn't have, let her have like a little bit of fun. And I think that was just an excuse for him to be able to control her in that moment, especially, how he's been acting, especially around Georgie. I think Georgie had a lot to do with that, to be honest.
So we watched the tension with Georgie and Michael kind of build on the bus, like they were taking jabs at each other. And so we kind of felt like Michael Benz and Georgie, the situation was building up. So once they get to the bar, we see Georgie and Michael taking hits at each other. And a lot of people online are kind of divided on this situation because a lot of people said that Michael got in Georgie's face. And they were like, that was uncalled for. And then a lot of people are saying, well, Georgie shouldn't have thrown him on the floor. And this whole, I think that both of them were out of line, right? Do you feel like that? Because I feel like Michael was poking at him and he was getting in his face and he was kind of, poking the bear and tormenting him. And at some point, Georgie was like sick of it and things got physical, which was super embarrassing for everyone there. Like, they were so humiliated that that happened. And Stacey is like, this is supposed to be a party and a good time. But again, this is why you don't mix bachelorette and bachelor parties. You always should have it separate because there's always going to be issues. Probably not these type of issues, but everyone knew inviting Georgie and Michael Benz and Darcey to the same event was going to end this way, right?
Exactly. Those three put together is like putting oil and water together. You never know what kind of explosion is going to happen when them three are in the same room. I think that, both Georgie and Mike both crossed boundaries that they shouldn't have crossed at that time because they should have put their issues to the side. That was supposed to be a fun night for Stacey and Florian. Whatever's going on in their personal life, that was really disrespectful for them to bring it into that situation. And if it was getting out of control that much, even though Georgie is best friends with Florian, Florian should have took Georgie to the side and calmed him down, as well as Darcey should have took Mike to the side and calmed him down, because that wasn't about them. That was about Stacey and Florian having their bachelorette party, and that was just a ticking bomb waiting to go off.
Explode. All right, so we watched Florian and Georgie go on a golf outing, and Georgie revealed to us some information that we all have been speculating in the back of our minds. But it kind of explained a little bit of why Georgie has been acting so weird and territorial about Darcey. So apparently during the Cicero debacle, Georgie was in town in Miami. We knew this. We saw, but the way that Darcey reacted to him being in town, this information kind of caught us off guard because Georgie revealed to us that they had hooked up. And this gave him a false sense of hope that there is an opportunity to rebuild their relationship and rebuild their connection. Darcey looked at the night as a drunken mistake, a one-time thing. You know, she was lonely. She was dealing with Cicero ghosting her, and he was there for someone to support her in that moment. And Georgie's like, well, I feel kind of cheap, you know, and used because she knows how I feel about her. That was not a one-time thing for him. So that kind of explained a little bit as to why Georgie was reacting the way he did when he realized that Darcey was texting a boyfriend. Because in his mind, they were rebuilding things together. But in Darcey's mind, they weren't rebuilding anything. He was just in town. She was in town. That was something that happened. And I think Georgie is unable to let that go. And I think on this trip, he's going to tell everybody that they hooked up. I feel like that's his agenda. And as soon as he finds out that Zach is going to be at that wedding, he's going to tell Zach too.
Yes. Whenever I seen that part where, you know, he told Florian that him and Darcey had hooked up and he was explaining how it all happened, I was like, oh my goodness, here comes the fireworks. You know, he's starting to put that little bit of oil in that water. It's fixing, it's fixing to explode. But still, at the end of the day, even though Darcey and Georgie hooked up in Miami because apparently they were both drinking, they were both vulnerable. Yes, Darcey did mislead Georgie because we don't know what Darcey said to Georgie. That was behind closed doors. So how do we know Darcey wasn't stringing him along on a little, you know, like her little puppet to have him as a backup if nothing else, you know, like with Zach, if it doesn't go well, or if she chooses someone else, if it doesn't go, you know, the way she wants. So, but at the end of the day, Georgie should have waited after the bachelorette party and then talked to Darcey. But I understand, you know, if he was thinking that was they were getting back together and she was leading him on, then yeah, I mean, who wouldn't explode? Especially with her, you know, texting another man right there in his face.
Right in front of him. Right. So the next morning, things got even more intense and serious because we found out that Michael Silva, the twins' dad, the matriarch of the family, had a mini stroke, which kind of put a damper on the entire party. The twins were like, well, we're definitely not doing anything else in this bachelorette party. We're going to go home. We're going to go take care of our dad. And it kind of catapulted them back to reality, like whatever cloud they were on experiencing that. And even Darcey said it was already a crap show, but like now at that point it had gotten to the point where they're like, we don't even want to be here, we want to go to take care of our dad. And finding out that he couldn't travel, knowing that Stacey wanted to get married, and the only way she wants to get married is if her dad walks her down the aisle, which I completely understand. Her dad is probably the most important guy in her life other than Florian, so that made a lot of sense. So they ended up moving the wedding to Connecticut so he could physically be there, because his doctor said that traveling would be out of the question for him because he's highly susceptible to a reoccurrence. So I think that this really put into perspective how stupid everything has been on this trip. You know, they're like fighting and arguing and all of this negativity. And then they realize this is the real world. Things could happen in the blink of an eye. They need to be more understanding that they're wasting time on stupid things. And I think that this is maybe going to give all of them a better outlook and perspective on what they're doing in life, because it kind of opened up Stacey's eyes to getting marriage counseling. And we know that Florian is against marriage counseling, like 134,000%. He doesn't believe in it. So she had to deceitfully get him there. So she said she was hiring an officiant, and the officiant was actually there to help them. But it actually worked out in the end because the officiant did get Florian to admit his part in it. And he did agree that he wanted to change and he wanted to do better. And he even apologized. And I think that counseling, therapy, I'm an advocate for it because I feel like we never analyze ourselves. We usually stand on the outside and we analyze others, and we always project things onto other people. So I think renewing their vows after 2 years, this is a good time, you know, to talk about the things going on in the relationship that you want to change, because no marriage, I think the marriage counselor said it, is going to be easy. This is going to be a job. It's work, and you have to put time into it. And I feel like they definitely are giving themselves the opportunity to grow by opening that conversation. And without the counselor, talking to Florian was like talking to a brick wall. Like trying to tell Florian he did something wrong was like telling a deaf person something out loud. Without the braille, it just didn't get through.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, I want to say that I'm very sorry to hear what happened to Darcey and Stacey's dad. I hope he recovers 100%. He is what I've seen after following, Darcey and Stacey all these seasons. I mean, he's an amazing man. So I am praying and hoping for 100% recovery. Yes. And I am on board with what Stacey and Darcey did. They stopped what they were doing. They went home to take care of their dad. That is the main and important thing, is taking care of, your parents. If they need you, you stop what you're doing and you start, you run to their side. And make sure that everything is okay. So, but you do remember that it was said that he doesn't need any stress. And whenever he was on the phone with Darcey and Stacey, that's the first thing that he said: "You girls stress me out." So they promised him they wouldn't stress him out. So we'll see. But no, in all seriousness, I know Darcey and Stacey love their dad very, very much. It's totally obvious. And as far as, the wedding, that is really generous of Florian and Stacey moving their wedding now from Miami to Connecticut. So, and then, like you said, Stacey bringing in the one that's going to marry them, it did catch Florian off guard, because he thought they were just going to talk about the wedding. He didn't know that they were going to be in pretty much marriage counseling. So I understand where he's coming from. Stacey should have told him, look, we're not only going to talk about, what's going to happen at the wedding, how we're going to do it, but we're also going to be in marriage counseling as well. That way he didn't go in, into this with like a deer in headlights, because it really, really, it upset him. And I get it, but I get it where Stacey's coming from as well. And, me being married to someone in a different culture, whenever the culture, you have to, it's a give and take. He's married to an American. He accepted her the way she is. She's married to him. She married him and accepted him the way he is. So whenever you bring in two different cultures, there has to be some give and take. You have to find a happy medium somewhere. That's the only way it's going to work.
That's true. I agree with you 100%. And I feel like she not told them because he wouldn't have shown up, but it was at the house. Where was he going to go? Maybe that was that too. He couldn't really hide.
Maybe hide in the bedroom.
So we found out that Zach is going to be in Connecticut at the wedding. And that is a little alarming, because things are going well with Zach. And Darcey needs to tell Zach that she hooked up with Georgie, not because it happened while they were together or anything. It happened before him, but she just wants him to know from her, because we know Georgie has a very loose mouth, and we know that he's going to be telling people, especially when he sees that she brought a date to the wedding, he's going to be telling people, oh, by the way, we hooked up and I think that we should be together. I'm in love with her. How he's been speaking all season. So, and that could be a deal breaker for Zach, because Zach doesn't like drama. A lot of people don't like drama. Drama can be extra and unneeded in any situation. So that's what we're going to watch next week on the 2-hour wedding finale. It's the finale of the season. I'm excited for that. We've run out of time, unfortunately, but this has been the George Mossey Show, Darcey and Stacey, season 4, episode 11 and 12. Thank you so much to my co-host DeeDee for joining me. And make sure you're following me on all social media platforms at George Mossey, georgemossey.com, and anywhere you get your podcasts. And we'll talk to all of you guys really soon.